Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. You might be wondering, why do I have a pile of DJI products sitting in front of me? Well, the answer is simple. Today, I have a new product from ViFly, the Beacon. And we're going to take a look at this standalone buzzer, we're going to install it, and we're going to go over its functions. What do you say we jump into the overhead and get this thing out of the box? This is how the ViFly Beacon comes shipped outside a nice little cardboard box. And then inside, we're greeted by this plastic box, which I absolutely love. ViFly, please keep sending these boxes. They're a very handy tool to have. They're great for keeping small parts in, and I absolutely love them. But let's get this thing open and talk about the good stuff inside. So here, I'm greeted by the buzzer itself, wrapped up nicely in some bubble wrap to protect it. In my case, I have a zip tie. And I also have an instruction sheet. Something that is worth mentioning is I do believe that this is a production sample, and your unit might vary a little bit depending on what it's going to come with. I believe the big difference is that yours is going to come with a piece of 3M hook and loop fastener in order to install this guy, to use a little adhesive and stick it on something. Mine does not have that. In my case, it's not a big deal. I believe I'm going to use a zip tie. Actually, I know I'm going to use the zip tie. But I'll go over a couple of mounting options with you, and just be aware that the contents of mine might be slightly different than yours. Before we actually touch the beacon, let's take a quick look at the manual and see what this consists of. On the front page, we're greeted by Get to Know Your ViFly Beacon. And we have a few things that are pointed out to us that are fairly important. Item number 1 is your micro USB cable input, and that's how you're going to charge the device. Number 2 is the button, and that's how you're going to operate the device. Number 3 is the LED, which is super bright. Don't look at it when it's on, you will regret that. Number 4, we have the buzzer itself, because we got to make some noise. And number 5, it is also equipped with a LiPo battery. That's how we are actually powering it. On page number 2, we're greeted with operation. And when we do the functions in the beacon itself, we're going to go through the basic operation, but let's hit some of these points here. We have a how to activate. Essentially, you're going to push and hold the button on the beacon momentarily. It'll activate the device. To arm it, I believe this is going to happen when the beacon believes it was in a crash. It also has a stealing warning. This is kind of cool. If somebody picks up your drone while the beacon's going off, it's going to make a whole heck of a lot more noise. On, let's see, page 3 pretty much of the instructions here, we have motion sensitivity setting. You can change how sensitive the device is, meaning what type of impact it's going to take in order to trigger the buzzer. Depending on the way you fly, you might want this to be more or less sensitive. If you're an aggressive pilot, you probably want this less sensitive because hard maneuvers may trigger the device. You know, maybe you race RC cars and just regular bashing is constantly triggering the device. So you want to turn down the sensitivity a little bit. And then we have how to charge. It's pretty simple. Literally just plug into the USB. And that's about all it is. When the voltage gets low, it is going to sound a beep. I believe it's going to beep twice about every 1 second to indicate that it needs to be charged. Our final page of the instructions has some specifications. Most importantly is our alarm pattern. First 30 seconds, it's going to beep at a low volume. 30 seconds to 2 hours, it's going to beep at max volume every 6 seconds. And after 2 hours, it's going to beep every 12 seconds until the unit dies. Now, I also believe if it's nighttime, the LED is going to flash on here as well. Now, let's look at the beacon itself and go over its functions. Probably the first thing you're going to want to do is plug it in and charge it up. And you can see we got a nice little charging LED here indicating that the unit is receiving power and that it's charging up. Hopefully you can see that on camera. Maybe if I unplug it, you might be able to see the difference. I don't know. Hopefully you guys can see, but take my word for it. There is an LED here that is indicating that the unit is charging. Give it a good charge out of the box. You can never go wrong with that. Especially if you end up installing it in a location that is difficult to access the USB. Now that we're charged up, let's work this thing. The way we're going to turn it on is by pushing and holding this button for between 2 and 5 seconds. Now, the way that I've learned to do it is I push and hold it for 3 1000s. So I do 1001, 1002, 1003, and release the button. The super bright LED illuminated, and hopefully you were able to hear the buzzer chirp initially at a low volume, indicating that I activated it. Now, we can hear it chirping in these small groups, indicating that the buzzer is powered on, and it's essentially active and ready to go. If I pick it up, and look, and I move it around, it stops beeping. Right now, the beeper thinks that it's flying around and everything's all good and we're doing exactly what we need to. Well, what happens when you crash? How about we simulate that? Now I crashed. The beep patterns are going to change to one beep, just like it's doing right now. And you can hear that it's kind of quiet. It's going to beep quietly for 30 seconds, and then it's going to go into its actual alarm state. I'm going to sit and I'm going to wait for that alarm state, and we're going to check back in when it's making all sorts of ruckus. Now the beeper is in its alarm state, and we can hear that it's chiming loudly every few seconds. Every few seconds, exactly like it's supposed to. I believe if it was dark out, the LED would be flashing as well, helping us hone right in to where that lost drone is. Because this thing is loud and I need to talk to finish this video, let's get into deactivating it. Okay, right now I just triggered the stealing alarm state because I picked up and I moved the buzzer. I think this is going to be normal if it's an alarm state and you pick up the drone to try to silence it. I do have my finger over the end of the buzzer right now to quiet it down a little bit so I can talk to you guys. But if I do remove my finger, you can hear it's pretty loud making a ruckus. Okay, let's disarm the beeper. Okay, the beeper's going off. The LED's flashing. I have my finger over the end of it right now to quiet it down so you can hear me. The way we're going to shut it off is by pushing and holding the button again for that 3 to 5 seconds. Again, I'm going to do that same 1001, 1002, 1003. If it doesn't work, just do it again. Maybe hold the button for a little bit longer. Let's shut this guy off. 1001, 1002, 1003. You could hear when the buzzer received the input to turn off correctly that we actually got an indicator that it beeped at us, so we know that it's no longer in its alarm state. You're going to have to remember to turn this thing on and off every single time you use it. I don't think it'll be easy to forget to turn it off, because if you do, it's going to start making a lot of noise and you're probably going to want to deal with it. But really make sure that you get this thing turned off before you send it, because someday it could really save you. Since we've already taken a look at the device and what it comes with, let's talk a little bit about installation. I'm going to start with my Mavic Air, mostly because I feel that this is going to be a little bit difficult to do this type of installation with. This thing folds up super tight. There aren't really any cavities or anything to be able to stick the beacon in. So really, you know, how are you supposed to attach it? And I actually have a pretty good idea for these that I'm going to share with you guys. Ultimately, my plan is to put it on one of the rear moving arms. You can see how they fold in. And my idea is essentially to attach it something like this. Maybe if we go to the overhead, you'll be able to see a little bit easier. Hopefully you guys can see that. See how I'm holding it on the side of the arm? I'm going to get a piece of double-sided tape and stick it on there. I got a little double-sided tape on there, and I'm ready to stick it on my Mavic. And the way I'm going to do it, like I said, is I'm going to do it on the back arm that swings, and I'm literally just going to stick it on the edge like that. Now, part of what I'm paying attention to is the orientation of the USB port and making sure that it's going to be easy to plug in, essentially so I can charge it when I'm not using it. And by putting it here, as you can see, it's still easy enough to be able to fold out the arm. Hopefully it's going to be a little bit protected being on the inside like this. And, you know, I can just super easily fold the arms in and slide everything into my case. This doesn't mean that this is the only option. I just thought this was a good option for me because I'm going to be able to fit this drone in my case with the beacon attached like this, but you don't need to put it here. And I have a couple other things that you might be able to do as well. So again, with double side tape, maybe you just stick it right on the back side like that, and I'd just be done with it. With yours, you're gonna get that 3M hook and loop fastener, so it should be super easy to stick it on. Now, things you're gonna wanna avoid with especially something like the Mavic is the sensors. You're not gonna wanna cover any of this. On my Phantom, I have a little bit different of an idea. I think I'm gonna go ahead and attach it to the landing gear, but this time I'm gonna use a zip tie. So again, let's hit the overhead camera and I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do it. I hope you can see all this okay. The angles are a little difficult because this is a large quad, but I'm gonna do my best so you guys can see how I'm zip tying it on. So for the most part, I'm just gonna take it, and I think I'm gonna put it up a little bit higher. You guys can't even see that. I think what I'm gonna do is try to tuck it up here like this. Kind of in there like that. Hopefully you can see it. Once I get the zip tie on, guys, you guys can't even see that. Once I get the zip tie on, I'm gonna zoom out and I'm gonna show you a little bit better of how I put it on here. I've got the beacon installed in my Phantom, and all I did was just put a zip tie to hold it into place. Now, there's antennas in these landing gears on the Phantom, and to me it doesn't seem like a good idea to put an electronic device over an antenna, and that's why it's up here. Also, the antenna is stopping it from sliding down the leg because there's a little bit of a stop up here. And the button is very easily accessible. It'll be really easy to push this thing literally at almost any moment as I'm preparing to either take off or stage or whatever it is I'm doing, landing, disable the buzzer as well. Super easy. You want to keep this guy accessible. Another thing as well is I've got the USB port easily accessible from the bottom, so it's going to be super easy to charge the beacon when I'm not using it. And here's just another shot of a different angle, so hopefully you can see how I've mounted the beacon. Again, you can see the antenna here. You can see I'm using the antenna as a stop so the beacon doesn't slide anywhere, and I've got it securely zip tied on. I really don't think that there's a right or wrong way to install your beacon. Just simply do it in a way that's convenient for you, that makes it easy to charge, but also is easy to access the button. I think this is another very universal and flexible product from ViFly, and this is partially why I'm a fan of this company. I see no reason why you couldn't install this device on pretty much anything. I mean, I'm talking fixed wings, cars, I mean, of course your drones. Even though that this was primarily designed for DJI products, keeping that market in mind, again, it doesn't mean that you can't install it on anything that you might have this type of recovery requirement. It's nice having a device that's so flexible and easy to use. Hopefully, this video is going to help you with your installation of your ViFly Beacon. I have to say thank you to John and ViFly for sending me a production sample and giving me this opportunity to review. That's it. That's all I got this time. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.